Okay, you've built up quite rightly a reputation for improving horses that have come from other yards. Astro King cost 38,000 and then won 206,000, including the Cambridgeshire. And you mentioned Anderleap. It was rated 65, and if my information is correct, is now rated 94. I'm assuming that horse had to have been a 94 or better horse when it was rated 64. You can't make a moderate horse a good horse, or can you? I mean,
yeah, and I think that comes back to the pedigrees and what the breeders are doing at home. We do a lot of pedigree analysis when we go to the sales, whether we're buying yearlings or older horses, because as you say, they have to have that raw ability within them. It's going back to my Cambridge days of physiology. You know, if the horse hasn't got the really strong heart, it's never going to be as good as the one that does. Has it got the right muscle makeup? Has it got, you know, good red blood cell capacity? Has it got a good pair of lungs? Or did it get a bit sick as a foal so it actually can't achieve what it could have done? So yeah, you need all that right, but then it's down to us then. When it comes into our yard as trainers, it's our responsibility to try and get that full potential out of them. And as Dan said before, that's a whole team effort. It's not just Dan and I analysing form, analysing all the bits that we could improve. It's down to the team really caring and going that extra mile, you know, doing more of the ice boots, doing more of, we do various different treatments, don't we, to try and help. But it's a day in, day out thing, and they have to be religious about it, and they do it because they love it, and they're competitive.
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, it's just, yeah, and just, you know, the pieces of work at home, you know, making sure each piece of gallop they do is high quality, that they're doing it to the right times. And one thing we haven't touched on yet is kind of the biobanding that we do, and that requires our team to really know clocks in their head when they're riding pieces of work. So that's very much what we used to do back in California days, but this is a lot more structured now around science and evidence to strengthen bone so that they can perform and have really long, good careers.
Yeah, can you talk about biobanding then, what we've mentioned it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way probably to describe it is to say if you take a group of 13-year-old, let's say boys, and they all play cricket, you've got one who started shaving and you've got one who's still got a squeaky voice over in the corner, and they've got completely different physiques because they're at different points of development. So you've got your physical age. So with our 2-year-olds, you'd have the same thing. You've got a group of 2-year-olds, and you'll have some who are the 13-year-old with a squeaky voice, and you've got some that are, you know, they're chasing after the girls and they're causing all kinds of trouble. And they've got very different physiques. And those bigger, stronger ones in sport, generally an advantage. I use cricket because it's a good example. You know, a bigger, stronger, you know, your one who's more like a 15, 16-year-old can obviously hit the ball further, bowl quicker, and all the rest of it. And it's an advantage, and tends to be the one that gets selected for the, you know, the team, and then gets extra coaching, and then they're the ones that, you know, progress into the county players, and they go up through the system. The problem is that they've been totally dependent on their strength advantage to become successful. And when they enter the sort of adult game, because they've maybe got away with not having as good technique, they then fall apart. And also in the sort of talent development pathway, some of those young, you know, those less developed boys will have fallen out the system because they don't enjoy it. Nobody likes losing all the time, and so they go and find something else to do. And actually what they've started to do in cricket is put them more into the group that they would be based on their physiology rather than their actual age, so that, you know, the ones who stand out are the ones with good technique, and you're working on developing technique because that physical advantage is taken away. And it's something that's very common across a lot of sports. And the other thing is understanding, you know, our 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, particularly the 2-year-olds, they're still growing, they're still developing, and your body is going through a lot of changes. And there's times in that process where you're much more susceptible to injury. And we spent a fair bit of time talking to someone at the University of Bath who heads up one of their sports science departments that deals specifically with youth athletes. And, you know, they've developed programs with the football academies that have reduced the injury rates and the number of days lost training in those academies by 80%, which is huge, by understanding where these young athletes are in their physical development, and training them to an appropriate level. And we very much, that's the principle we use when we're trying to train horses, because yes, everyone loves a fast early Ascot 2-year-old, but if you try and make a horse that isn't do that, you're more than likely going to cause injuries that cause issues for the rest of its training career. Our job as trainers is to fulfill, you touched on it before, is each horse to fulfill its potential. And if we do so sometimes the patience is about, okay, so we didn't go to Royal Ascot this year, but if we can go to Royal Ascot next year and every year after, because we've developed a really nice horse, the owners are going to have so much more fun with that than, us calling up and saying, oh, things haven't quite worked out here, we've got a problem. And, it's difficult enough that if we can work out where horses, are at greater risk to be a little bit more patient, well, that's brilliant,
Okay, now we've talked about all the things that you do differently to a lot of other trainers. Now, I do like figures. The last 3 seasons, 2021, 146 runners, 18 winners, 44 place, and 160,000 prize money. 2022, 176 runners, 26 winners, 51 place, 323,000 prize money. And 2023, 172 runners, 24 winners, 69 placed, and 580,000. And that's nearly doubling for 3 years in a row. Is that purely down to what you've just been describing?
I think, the transition, I suppose, is those are the first sort of years we've really been operating out of this place 100%. And fortunately, when you get some good results, a few other people notice you, and you get sent some better horses. And I think we've got a lot more confident in ourselves, and actually to go out and go and buy a couple more horses, and people are more willing to invest into those. We run a lot of syndicates in-house here. A lot of our horses are owned, by groups of people that we've put together, or, they don't necessarily always know each other beforehand, and, hopefully they get to know each other on the way, and, they become good friends, and, they have some good days together, and, it's a great experience owning horses. And I think also with the information that we're sort of passing on in terms of, some of that science and data, it's quite nice to share that. Because not, especially people who maybe didn't grow up around horses or don't really come in contact day to day with horses, actually, a trainer saying some of the sort of traditional things that we might say about a horse doesn't actually mean very much to them. But actually, if you can show them a graph or a picture or, an X-ray and a bit of data, it sort of brings it a bit more alive to them. Me talking over a video of a horse going up a gallop saying it's going very well probably doesn't mean a lot to most people, because they don't have that finely tuned eye, that that sort of horseman's eye or horsewoman's eye that's looking at the horses every day to understand the difference. But actually a set of numbers is, most people can understand that 40 miles an hour is quicker than 38.
Now, you've mentioned previously, I think you said, Claire, that you're formed students. So, I mean, I'm assuming you watch a lot of racing on the telly or whatever, and sort of, have you got time to sort of go into it like that?
I think particularly around sale season, obviously when you're entered in a race, you really get to know the form of that kind of group of horses that you're going to keep running against all summer. Building up to the sales, we get our heads down and we work. We get through a lot of races, a lot of analysis. Yeah. Just going back to the success over the last 3 years, as Dan said, it's confidence, but it's multifactorial. It's having this great facility. It's having a really established team where they all really trust and respect each other, and always pushing individually to be the best that they can. It's talent spotting, it's using all this data as well that we're now using a lot more, and putting it together as a puzzle and saying, actually, this horse is better suited to this particular track, or this horse is better suited to this style of racing. And by being that more precise and informed, we're just getting a lot more accurate in our better in our results because of it. You're not wasting runs while you're trying to figure something out.
when you've got it all figured out and everything lines up, do you ring your bookmaker? Do you?
I don't bet, but I do know when Astro King was going for the Cambridgeshire, I think the jockey's agent was. Yeah, it was a weird experience really, because to be going into a big race like that and inwardly feeling pretty confident, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a trainer, you always get a percentage anyway, so in some ways that's the reward. But there's times where you think, well, that horse shouldn't be 20-1 or 25-1 or whatever it is. But I think backing a 5-2 shot into 6-4 probably isn't that exciting. I don't know, for me, but we're punting all the time, because every year we go and buy. We probably go and spend £200,000 of money we don't have, and then have to sell these horses onto people on the basis that we believe they can win races and they can perform on the track, and that hopefully people get a lot of enjoyment from them, and that satisfaction of getting it right for people and the enjoyment that people get out of having a winner. It's funny, you start training and it's probably not something we thought about much, it was about how do you train winners, but actually the satisfaction that owners get when they own a winner, that's sort of reflected, how do you put it, like seeing them enjoy it so much and what it means to them is so rewarding. And I think all of that side to it is, it's sort of like you're satisfied. For me anyway, it's not a financial thing. It's the reward of actually seeing someone be so happy and, a job well done. Because training horses it looks very easy. You're just trying to get one to go faster from A to B. It's never quite so straightforward in practice. So when it all goes right, I think you have to enjoy it. And, I think it's so important you do enjoy it when they win. Okay,
now hopefully I've left the best question till last. You talked about all the science. How much, because you read Martin Pipe's book years ago. He was ahead of everybody else with the stuff he was doing. Everybody's caught up with him. How much further can the science go? I mean, are you talking inches just to win those big handicaps, doing all the things you do, or are the horses better now, or are they just better understood and better trained and better fed?
I think there's so much to this question. I think the first thing I'd say about scientific progress is never like that. And, it sort of goes in. And I think always the most dangerous thing is when you think there is nothing more to learn, it's probably just when something massive is about to change around the corner. So I think you've always got to be thinking, you can improve and do things better. Otherwise, what's the point? If you think you've cracked it, you're in trouble.
What do you think, Claire?
I think the very top people in this industry are probably doing a lot of what we're doing anyway, but we'll be keeping it behind closed doors. In terms of us as a yard trying to compete against all the big people, it helps give us an edge, but to keep pushing, because ultimately, it's talent spotting, it's getting the better quality horses in so that we can showcase how good our team is and what they can achieve. The breed overall, gosh, I mean, Frankel is like one of the best that you've seen, and it's a pleasure to be in an industry like this where when you get the real stars, like to celebrate them, and to see their offspring starting to race on the track. And will the breed keep on improving? Yeah, I think it will. I mean, records aren't necessarily getting broken every day, but there's just so much satisfaction to even just competing against the age group you're against or the class that you're in.
I mean, I think there's a lot of track records that do get broken, but actually, a lot of them aren't changing because we don't race on ground as quick as it used to be, for example. But I think there's some quite interesting research, I'm trying to think where it was from, where basically they said, the track records maybe aren't shifting much, but the sort of middle of the road races are getting quicker and quicker. So that's probably suggesting that overall the breed is improving, or maybe the breed's not improving, maybe we're getting better at realising its potential. It's probably a bit of both. Breeders are getting cleverer about thinking about how they breed and what works and what doesn't work. And, there's people who are very innovative in those areas. And, looking at genetics on a massive scale and looking at all of that kind of things and understanding, you know, AI is going to change how data's handled. And you can't tell me that someone isn't working somewhere on a model that's going to, you know, take steps forward in terms of breeding horses, and equally training horses and understanding placing horses. There's so many factors to producing a horse to be a champion that, you know, and they all have to line up right, that every little step that you can do to put those odds slightly more in your favour is critical. And same as when you're making a bet.
Okay, just a final question. My mole obviously told me quite a few secrets about the training, which we've talked about. How much have I missed that you've kept up your sleeves?
You can't give away all the secret sauce.
And I don't blame you either. Claire and Dan KÜBLER, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.